Welcome back. This is our second show for Irrational Advice with me, Dr. Elliot Paradox Doc Kaplan. Today, my special guest and actually a future sidekick here on the show will be is Naftali Hertz. I'm sorry, that's my father's name. Naftali Sobel LCSW. And we've actually we worked together on a number of projects already together, and I'm admittedly I'm the expert in the area. I have the book, but Naftali found it to be an exciting approach, and I thought maybe we can get to meet Naftali today and hear what he has to say.
Thank you, Dr. Kaplan. I'm happy to be part of your show.
Good. All right. I'm glad that you're here. So we've been together for, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years. It's been a while already.
It's like over 2 years, yeah.
Right. And you actually contacted me. So yeah. What did you see? What did you find interesting about the work that I do?
Okay. So when I first started therapy, I didn't know what to do, and the clinic, I didn't know what was going. I didn't know what was flying, and the director of the clinic I was working for said that she suggested to learn CBT. So I was listening to a CBT podcast, and it's a CBT podcast from David Burns, and he has this whole, it's called TEAM, this whole method. But in the CBT method, he also has a paradoxical part to it. And I had read a lot about CBT because I needed it for my job, but this is a new novel idea of paradox, and I wanted to know more. And I was listening to it, and I couldn't afford to at that time wasn't do a whole CBT training. So I was trying to do the paradox on my own, and every now and then I was trying to put it in because I heard on the podcast how effective it was, but I didn't know what it was. So then later on, it wasn't so much later on, I'm part of Nefesh. Dr. Kaplan, you're part of Nefesh, and Nefesh is a network as an organization from religious, Orthodox Jewish professionals in the therapy world. And we got hooked up. There was like a networking event where you met two people at once on a Zoom. And so I met you and some other guy, and he said to you, "Oh, you're the paradox guy." And I was like, "Oh, there's a paradox guy. What's this?" So later on, I saw one of your, I guess, advertisements for a training, and I went to it, and then I appreciated it, and I reached out to you about a case. And
so what? I mean, as we got into it, as you know, what did you see in paradox that you didn't see, let's say, with CBT?
So I think there are a lot of advantages to linear and logical kinds of therapy like CBT, giving advice, how to perceive something, how to understand something in a logical manner. But what my feeling was that I wasn't connecting with the client in the way I wanted to. I was teaching them, and did they get it? Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Not whatever, different modalities, and I didn't necessarily connect with. When I saw what was happening, for instance, when I watched once a therapy from Gestalt, from Fritz Perls, and how the therapist and the client were like, there was connection, there was meeting, there was like electricity in the air. And then Dr. Kaplan, I saw some of your clips and how you were like with the client. Going into therapy, I always wanted to just be in that dark place with the client and just spend time with them there, so they wouldn't feel as alone or as scared. When you're not with someone else, you don't necessarily feel as scared. And I wanted that before I got into therapy. Mm-hmm. So I saw that a lot in what you were doing.
But as you know, I mean, paradox is off the beaten path. It's not, like you said, I think a lot of therapies are logical. I mean, even there's even new therapies that come out. They always make sense. I mean, like, like the new therapy out now is uh, um, IFS, internal family systems, and I think basically even when you kind of look at it, it makes sense. Um, and I think for certain clients, it can actually be very helpful. It can work very well. Um, but as you know, I think Paradox, it has that irrational piece, to it that I think, at least in my view, I think that, if people could figure out their life logically, and if everything would work A, B, C, D, in order, then they don't really need to go to therapy. And my view is, I guess, from my perspective, I like Paradox because it is illogical, or it throws a curveball into how the client perceives their situation.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I've noticed is that with people in general, things happen to us that, if you want to use the popular word trauma, that happen to us, and trauma is not a logical thing. It hits us in a way that's above our head. We can't handle it. It's above our capabilities, and therefore we're stuck.
It's above our cognitive reasoning, I think, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then connecting to someone on a logical place might be effective, might be helpful for symptoms. But as you always say, is it the way we're thinking that's different, or is it now we're connecting? There's a connection piece that's very important, and as we say very often, therapy and just being a human in general, connecting to someone else can be very paradoxical in and of itself. A lot of therapies have this paradoxical, just being with the client, being and not changing can be very healing. But the idea of the paradox is that we go one step. It's illogical from the step one. It's just you reach into a place in the client that they don't let anyone else be, in the place that they were traumatized, in the place that's above their persistent their conscious reality.
Yeah.
So that was, for me, that's like I wanted to connect, and that seems like the most powerful way to connect. One of the most powerful ways to connect.
Okay, I'm going to ask you in a second to maybe think of a case that you maybe did with a client, and maybe we can kind of explore it. But I just want to let the audience know that that my focus on irrational advice is really going to be working with couples and families and teens, and just to let the people out there know that the show itself is recorded. But if you could just send me an email, my email is paradoxdoc, PARDOXDOC @gmail. Maybe a little summary of maybe a situation going on in your family or in your relationship. And if you want to text me, you can text me at my phone number is 917-345-5750. And again, just to give me a little understanding of your situation. I may even call you before the show, before we record the show, and we'll explore, what a paradoxical intervention may look like. And again, I guess as we're talking about it now, it's it what is on the absurd. One of the things that as Naftali knows, is that if you're familiar with therapy, it's based on Carl Rogers, which is client-centered, and he basically mirrors the client in terms of where the client's at. It's also based on Fritz Perls from Gestalt therapy, and that's more the here and now. And I also talk about, it also has the absurd, so I call that the Bugs Bunny piece to Paradox, where I throw curveballs where the client is expecting a certain answer. You know what the therapist is supposed to say, and then all of a sudden the therapist says something the opposite, and it kind of jumbles the mind, and you have to rethink what your perception was. So again, so if you can send me an email or send me a text, and maybe we'll have a chance to present what's going on with you out there in the audience. So, Naftali, so give me an example of maybe a case that you worked on, and what the paradoxical intention was.
Yeah, okay. So I have one case. I had a case a few years ago, and it was classic. Son makes trouble, doesn't listen to mother. Mother screams and yells at son. And the mother, she had trouble being calm around him because the son was making he's doing a lot of crazy things. So when I was working with them and I was listening to what happens, and every week I saw the same thing, the same pattern, that this kid is not listening, or this kid is doing something he shouldn't be, and the mom can't help herself, but she yells and screams. And there are some therapies that say, let's work on the mom's parenting, and mom, you got to do better. And those are very helpful for a lot of people, but to a certain extent, you're expecting a lot for the mother. Maybe the mother can handle it, maybe not. But I saw that the son was, causing trouble. Maybe he was in a little of pain because this is the dynamic. And the mom is obviously, she can't handle this anymore. So I wanted to do something where I could help both of them. So, I started out and I was saying, son, it seems like this is what you do. You don't listen to your mother. You don't put away, you make a big mess and you don't clean it up.
How old was the kid?
I think he was around 9.
Okay.
Okay, so but that's what you do. You cause trouble, you make big messes, you don't listen to your mother, and that's what you do. So we can plan that you're not gonna listen to mom. And I said to the mother, Mom, it's a lot for you. This is, you have so much going on, so much on your plate, and you can't help but yell. But that's sort of how you cope, and maybe he'll listen better if you yell. And maybe you're not so happy about yelling, but this is what you do. And son, this is what you do. So I said, but the truth is, son, your mother, she in a sense has a lot going on, and she sort of needs to yell. So you're actually helping her, because when she yells, she's getting it out. So I'm telling the son, you're important to your mother's everyday life because you are sort of helping her with this. You are now getting her energy out.
Wait, you're saying that if you make that you're trying to make the mother yell? I mean, in therapy, we're supposed to get the mother to calm down. We're supposed to get the kid to, toe the line, behaving the way he's supposed to. You're kind of shaking up the tree here.
Okay, it's very true, and I think you said it on the first episode of this station that I mean, first, we tried different things. We tried, the mother goes this way, the mother goes that way. We did try some parenting things, but I saw this is sort of the pattern that they're in. They're sort of stuck in it, and for me to push and shove and remind and all these things, I wasn't convinced that would help. But I knew that maybe when they're about to have their go at it, if I could be with them in that moment, that might be very helpful. So I was telling the son, this is what you do, and we can plan on it. And you know what? No judgment. this is what you're gonna do. But then I started assigning the son, you have an obligation to yell at your mother. You got to yell. You got to make it so your mother yells. You have to be able to give her that opportunity. She needs the opportunity. And then I said to mom, and I said, Mom, and of course I'm feeling very in control. I'm just there. I'm warm and accepting. It's not sarcastic. I'm with them. And I said to the mom, if he's going to go out of his way to make you sure that you are able to yell, you better yell. You better yell, because, if you don't yell, you're going to confuse your kid. So you got to yell because your kid is used to yelling.
It's accustomed to.
He's used to it. So he's going to be like, what's going on with mom? Like, this is how mom, this is how I know mom. Mom yells at me. If she's not yelling, maybe Chas Michelle, and God forbid she's sick or whatever, and that's not good. Maybe she's really mad at me. She doesn't want to talk to me. So I think we have to keep up this pattern. And so what you see is that I'm validating everyone. And by the way, sometimes I might say I don't think it's the best. Maybe it's not the best thing that you're doing this, or maybe it's not the healthiest. And I'll say that. But if you can get it, this family, every time they came in, they would just laugh hysterically. They would laugh and laugh and laugh because it was absurd. I was being absolutely ridiculous. But as time went on, you could see that the mom was like, not, like, you know, she went home, they came back, and I was like, well, we fought 5 times this week, and then soon it was like twice a week, and it wasn't so, and it was much less. And I asked them what's going on. They weren't really able to say. They just, but for me, I know that as soon as they started laughing, I knew that I was connecting to them. I was meeting them in this place that they feel so guilty and so shamed that she's screaming at her son all the time. And here I am saying, not only accepting it, not only am I validating it, but I'm like pushing it even harder to do it. All of a sudden, there's less tension on her, because when she's about to yell at her kid, she's not alone anymore. She's with me in that moment.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great story. I think that, as I'm listening, you use the number of words, and I just kind of want to emphasize the words that you use. I think if paradox is gonna, if an intervention is gonna be straightforward, like CBT or a behavioral intervention, and it works, then that's fine. But I think that sometimes people are just stuck. And the family you were describing, mom and son, they're stuck. You give them the rational, like, listen, mom, you really shouldn't yell so much, and kid, really, maybe you should calm down. And that's logical, and that's really what they should do. But sometimes it's like when the family is so stuck, they don't even, everybody's waiting for everybody else to change. The kid's waiting for mom to do something different. Mom is waiting for the kid to do something different. And really, it's part of the system. This is the system that they kind of have between themselves. So the other thing that you also mentioned was that I think in terms of the rational part of it, you get them to laugh. And in my view, if a person can laugh and reflect on what they're doing, and kind of recognize that what they're doing is absurd, right? They're doing something crazy. And then you, as the therapist, give them permission to do that crazy thing. And all of a sudden, the behavior that was so serious and like so heavy suddenly becomes very light. And I know for myself that if the client is able to laugh about the pattern that they're engaged in with another family member, then it really that's the healing point. That's where the change happens. And even as you mentioned, like sometimes the family will come back and I'll say, hey, you were doing this behavior all along, and now you're not doing it. Well, what happened? What did you think about it differently? What did you do differently that you changed, that the situation changed? And very often the family will come back, and what they say is, I don't know why I changed. I just not doing my old behavior again. So I think that the exciting thing of paradox, the irrational advice of paradox, is that very often people change, but it's not a logical progression. It's not that something linear that people can actually figure out per se.
And I think the anomaly is that it's so non-linear, is that when a person knows what paradox is and is studied in it, trained in it, or just hears about it on the radio like right now, it's not going to help you to get out of a paradoxical intervention. It's because paradox is not linear. Dr. Kaplan always tells a story about, even myself, both of us have been paradoxed, and I get paradox often with my family. My family knows how to do it, and you're talking to a very deep part of the person when you're doing paradox. You can't use your brain to get out of it.
I'm going to ask you, I know there's a little story that you have, your kids were tantruming and they were getting all upset, and you were like getting upset about them tantruming, and we had a little talk about that. What did you end up doing?
So Dr. Kaplan, per your advice, I told the kids that now it's time, 7 o'clock, I think 6:30, every day was getting very tough, and I was losing I was losing it, and I had a really hard time coping. Just to be a good parent for the next half an hour before I went to sleep, and Dr. Kaplan suggested that it would be angry, Tati angry time or Tati grumpy time, and the kids loved it. And I all of a sudden
So what did you do as grumpy daddy? What did you?
I started, and I would say, now I'm yelling. I'm gonna yell at you guys, and they're like, oh, you got like, it became a game, and like all of a sudden, like, this is ridiculous. We're having a good time. Now we're gonna make sure you go in the bath and and they were like trying to coach me, like, but you gotta do it more, like, you gotta give it to me good, that's not yelling, Ta, because I always do the paradox to them, so they pick up on it,
Yeah. So instead of everybody being upset and the kids being like, oh, I'm getting in trouble, it sounds like all of a sudden it became a game, and maybe it was time to go to the bathroom. It's like, we're gonna go to the bath now. It wasn't like, maybe the usual fight to get them into the bathtub.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very much more peaceful at home since then. There's one thing I wanted just to put out. I think I listened to your show from last week, and I wanted to say, people don't want to change. I agree with that. But I think there's a part of people, obviously, people do want to change. That's why they come to therapy, but they're stuck, and the part of them, there's a part of them that doesn't want to change. And that's what paradox speaks to. We have all our defenses and all these things to protect ourselves. But the nice thing about paradox is that you can keep your defenses up and you can keep yourself as safe as possible. And we're going to just be with you in that safety. And through us being with you in that safety, whatever that means for you, all of a sudden, there's not as much of a need to feel safe because you're no longer alone.
Right. Well, I mean, we're going to be closing in a second now, but I think one of the things that I find exciting about doing as a therapist, doing paradoxical interventions, is that it's fun. Usually I think people think of therapy as I'm going to have to try hard, and I'm going to have to, and I'm going to be struggling, and it's going to take a lot of work, and it's and I find that in paradox it becomes fun to change. It's not that you just kind of do it because it just becomes natural. So again, I just want to put out that if you think that you have a situation in your family or in your relationship with your spouse, give me a shot. You can either text me at 917-345-5750.
And especially if you had therapy before and you found that maybe it wasn't so helpful. A lot of times people come to us when we do paradox. When people are having a harder time changing, this is exactly what that's for. If you had a hard time before, this is sort of more for people who are a little more resistant to getting the help, maybe on a more subconscious level.
Yep. And also my email, you can try us at our email is paradox.doc@gmail.com. So Naftali, thank you for coming on, and you're going to be my regular sidekick here. So, so thanks. Okay, see you guys next week.